So, the Australian Labor Party has won once again the Australian federal election on the 3rd of May 2025. This put Anthony Albanese as the Prime Minister for another 3 years if nothing happened, as you know. Now, here's what happened to the Australian migration law and policies, and what will the Australian Labor Party will do on their second term when it comes to Australian migration. Without further ado, let's get started. Hi, I'm Johnny. I'm a migration lawyer based in Sydney, and I post daily content on TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube Shorts to help people like you to get PR faster. And if you haven't subscribed, make sure you hit the subscribe, like, and comment, follow so that you don't miss any of the interesting content that you need to know in order to help you secure your future in Australia. So there's a couple of major things that the Labor government has actually announced that they want to do before they win the election. But in general speaking, the good thing about Labor getting elected, it means that the old policy will continue. Remember in our previous videos, in 2023 in October, Labor government actually released something called migration strategy. What it does is it plans out what the Labor government wants to do in the future 10 years when it comes to migration planning. As you know, there's a lot of changes that happened in the past 3 years. 485 has changed, student visas changed, 482 visas has changed, plus all the other changes that happened. Those changes got reflected in the migration strategies back in 2023 in October. Now, what will happen on the second term is that the Albanese government is very likely to continue on with the implementation of what they've planned back in 2023. Now, it shows that the migration policy will stabilize and you will be able to have a more foreseeable migration policies comparing to their first term because, you know, they have no idea what they're trying to do. The second thing is there's a lot of people who are really concerned about the general skilled migration pathway, the standard subclass 189, 190 and 491, what will happen under the Labor government. In my opinion, it is positive but rather selective. Now, the permanent migration cap remains the same at 185,000 spots for the next financial year. So financial year 2025 to financial year 2026. Labor hasn't cut it, but the overall migration intake has become more targeted, so more like temporary visas holders, student visas. So in this financial year, 2024 to 2025, we had 335,000 net migration coming in, and the Labor government vouched to put it down to 260,000 in the next financial year, starting from the 1st July. Now, high demand sectors, for example, constructions, healthcare, educations and social science, for example, these industry will still be prioritized. Very likely that these occupations will continue to be favored upon by the federal or state government's migration policies. Now, what are the occupations? Like carpenters, bricklayers, stuff relating to constructions, even construction project managers, those would do. When it comes to healthcare, of course, registered nurse and doctors and all the other related allied health, but probably not enrolled nurse because we have a massive supply. When it comes to education, that will be teaching. A lot of people have been talking about it. Early childhood teachers, you know, that's the new hit, but that was actually reflected in the last round of 189, which happened to be in November 2024. So that's quite a long time ago. So we'll need to pay attention to the next 189 round to see whether or not enrolled nurse will continue to be able to be nominated through the 189 program at just 65 points. And also, last but not least, social science, that will be social workers, community workers. So still, you know, very strong demand and very easy to get PR with. However, the Prime Minister, Mr. Albanese, has also talked about the housing crisis on numerous occasions, and what will impact is that it's very likely that the federal government and plus all the states government will try to invite more and more people in the construction space. If you have paid attention to some of my videos on TikTok and Instagram, you will know that I have talked about WA program a lot, and in WA they even provide subsidies to employer who want to sponsor people in the construction industry. So this is how big of a shortage is for construction skilled workers currently in Australia to solve the housing crisis. Now, if you're outside the scope of all of these industries, if you're say a cookery or automotive mechanic, last but not least, if you want to do it, make sure you plan it out very carefully, because if you're just a fresh graduate, you're coming from your college, then you got to pay attention. You will only have 18 months of 485 visas. That's not a lot because after completing the job ready program, that's a year, and so you only have 6 months to wait for invitation. As you know, for 189, the date of this video, we're recording it in mid-May, and the last round for 189 was exactly 6 months ago. So if you are a cook or chef waiting for that round, then your visa is very likely to have expired if you're going for the 485. So the third thing that I want to talk about is the student visa. So what will happen? The government has been targeting student visa. The idea of targeting student visa is not to stop genuine students to come to Australia, but to deter not ingenuine students. So there are people who use student visa as a tool to gain access to the Australian labour market. Because as you know, Australia pay well. So there's a lot of people who use student visa to come to Australia and then use the student visa's work condition to work ridiculously long hours and to save up money and send it back home. This is what the Australian government is trying to keep Australian dollars in Australia instead of sending it out, like the trade war, but migration sense. Now, student visas, if you're a genuine student, we see no problem with that. And also one of the things that they try to deter is to make Australian student visa a lot more expensive comparing to our other education competitors in the region or in the world. For example, US, UK, Canada, and New Zealand. So currently our student visa is priced at 1,600 Australian dollars. And the Labour government is looking at increasing it to $2,000. They haven't announced it, but this is a pre-elections promise. So very likely they will do it. And extra $400. Why not? So this is one of the things that they try to do as well. If that becomes successful, $2,000 student visa will be the most expensive student visa in the world. Now, as you remember, late last year, the Labour government actually tried to pass something to the international student cap. Of course, that got blocked in the Senate by the Coalition and Green. And in this instance, what will happen here is that the Labour government is currently using the international student cap, but put it together with Directions 111. What happened is the Australian government will slow down student visas processing time if that particular college has reached the cap. So what will happen is if the college have 1,000 spots and the college has used up 80% of the cap, so say they got 800 students already, then starting from the 801 student, they will get a way slower processing time. This is what's happening. And since the Labour government is very likely to control the upper house as well, the Senate, so we are expecting the international student cap will come back. So once it's back, what will happen is tuition fee will go up and universities will tighten the enroll. So it will get a lot harder for universities to issue offer letters to others. So if you want to come over and study or you want to study cheap courses, probably now is the good time. Last but not least, there's one thing that we have made extremely certain is that there were lots of rumors due to Peter Dutton, the former coalition leader. Mr. Dutton, a few casual comments on 188C, which is a golden visa of Australia. And then there's a lot of people talking about whether or not Australia is likely to reach into the subclass 188C visa, which allows foreigners to pay 5 million Australian dollars in return of a visa, and after they've stayed enough time, then they could get permanent residency visa. Now, under the Labour government, this is not coming back. However, investment fees is now gone. The subclass 188 visa is completely and destroyed. However, there are still some investment components of the migration program in Australia that is very likely to have various new requirements on the national innovative visa that allow rich people to use their skill sets offshore and to apply for state nomination in order to get nominated for the national innovative visa. The very famous the Northern Territory MEAN program, which allows people who are able to invest $750,000 into Northern Territory. Then in return, they may get nominated through the skill migration program for a subclass 190 visa. There are other small business owner pathway for onshore people through the 491 visa program as well. So it's not entirely gone, but the main investment side of things is completely gone. So if you want to know more about the investment side of things, make sure you comment below so I know that people actually want to know. Now, that's the end of this episode. I hope you really enjoyed it. If you haven't done it, make sure you hit the like, subscribe, and follow. Share this with your friend and comment in the comment section. Together, until next time, and let's get PR faster.